Hello everyone, Lion Gamer here. It has already been about 2 months since the release of a DBT8 set Minerva Rising. But now, since the last week, we also have now access to the DBT9 set Dragon Tree Invasion. And with this, once again, we got more new cards to work with and even some new decks introduced in this set. Now, let's just take a look and see how good they are and if the new decks will make a good entrance or not. So with no further ado, let's jump right into it. So let's start right off with the Dragon Empire and the support card for Nirvana deck, the Great 1 Triple Arm Freya Dragon Dragalia. His skill is if you place it from hand and you have a Nirvana Vanguard, you ditch one card from your hand, search your deck for up to one Trickster or one card with your Overdress ability, add it to your hand and shuffle your deck. And his second ability allows you to, if this card becomes our original address, you counterblast one, choose one Trickster from your drop zone and call it to Vanguard Circle. So this card allows you to play both Cross Overdress and Overdress in the same deck, like you have seen in the anime. Another certain point why you would do that is the new order card, Clad and Prayer, a great free order which allows you to choose each a cross overdress and the overdress unit in their respective state, and the one in the cross overdress state gets plus 10k for a turn, and the overdress state card gets the ability to restand himself if your Vanguard attack. It's true that even Dragalia being able to fetch something out of your deck, you don't really plus out of it, and even if you use the second ability to plus one board for a Trickster, you still have quite some problems with managing your counterblast in this deck. So for the other support cards for Dragon Empire are, for example, cards for buff Sagra, a grade 2 called Kang Shadi, which has a skill. If this card is placed from hand and you have the buff Sagra Vanguard, you soul blast one and discard one card from your hand and search your deck or drop up to one arms card and add it to your hand. And the second ability allows you to counterblast one, just one arms on the Vanguard circle and put it to soul, draw a card, and this card gains 5 cards for the turn. You now got access to another way to fetch some arms and second. You can just easily replace one of your arms without replacing it with a new one. You can just use this card, place the one on the field to a soul, and have a free space for the other arms which you want to. There's even another new card for Boss Sagra, which has the ability to put himself to the soul, choose either Chandra or Prithvi arms card on the Vanguard circle. And for this turn, its auto abilities cost will be reduced by 1 until the end of turn. So if you got any problems with using those cards because you are lagging counterblast, there's just this card right here to reduce cost. Those two cards are pretty good, but it won't make Boss Sagra a big comeback back to the meta or something like that. This set also introduced some new cards for Eugene, but I'm not gonna get deep into those cards because they just do something if the opponent is really retired, and not really much of change like getting much more value out of it. Even still, there's still one card which I really think should be mentioned in this set, and that's a grade 1 rare card called Pusara Pitera. He's got a generic ability. When this unit boosts, soul blast 1 and choose to build a unit that gets a full lead skill. When this unit attack hits a Vanguard, just one of your opponent's Regas and retire it. In itself, it's not really that impressive, but from some usability, you might consider it in future deck. For this set, there are also some new effect kills in the set, which has the ability if you place it in the Guardian Circle, and if your opponent's Vanguard is higher than yours, this card gains plus 10k for this bat. In my opinion, most of the times it's really just useful against decks like Chronojet, but mostly it's only effective if you yourself have gone second or something like that. I think you should get some copies of it. Well, yeah, that's it for it. And lastly, we even got the Dragon Tree cards in this set, which are generic cards in general. And for Dragon Empire, we got Draco Batical. All those Dragon Tree cards share the same first ability by Counterblast 1. Choose one of your Regards without a Dragon Tree marker on it and place a Dragon Tree marker on it. And those Dragon Tree marker are going to be important, but let's put that aside first. Let's first look at this skill. Once per turn, when your opponent's Regard has been retired by one of your effects, so plus 1, look at top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to one grade 1 or less unit from among them and call to Regard Shuffle and shuffle your deck. Unfortunately, this card can't be really used in that many decks, like only in Eugene or Boss Sagra deck, but those decks already got some amazing grade 1s which you want to use. So right now this card don't really use that often. I think you can splash maybe 1 or 2 in your deck if you want to, just to try it out. That's for you to decide, but yeah, unfortunately it's one of the worst Dragon Tree cards in my opinion. Moving on with the next nation, Stoichia. And let's start first with one of the new right lines in this deck, Granfia. So the right line, the grade 1, allows you to, if rolled upon by the certain grade 2 card, you can call a plant token. And the second one allows you to, if you have a plant token on rearguard circle, you don't have to discard any cards from your hand during the right phase to write into your grade 3. I really saw the right line, which allows you to have a higher amount of cards in your hand for turns to come. And now, let's take a look at the new grade 3 in the set, Granfia. His first skill is add once per turn, soul +1. All of your plant tokens and rearguard tokens become plant gauges. Then you call a Noblest Rose into the back row center circle and place all the plant gauges underneath that card. The Noblest Rose is a new kind of token, which has the ability that anytime you generate plant tokens, they all become plant gauges instead. And this card gains for each plant gauges 5k. So you got a stacking rearguard as a booster for your Vanguard. But why do you even need to stack that card with all those plant gauges? Well, the answer to that is the second skill on Granfia. At the end of his battle, put up to 5 plant gauges from your Noblest Rose, or even himself, through a drop zone, and choose one of the rearguard standard. And the card standard by this effect gains 5k for each card put into a drop zone for the cost of this effect, like in any other Stoichia deck or multi-attacking deck. It's got solid powers on the Vanguard swing and power up rearguard for this second attack. But of course, its rearguards are most of the time on the weakest side, because the only cards which support it in this set are cards which allows you to generate big amount of plant tokens, like for example, on place call one in the beginning of battle phase. If you have Granfia Vanguard, get another plant token, or put himself to the soul and call 2 plant tokens out. So nothing which says like buffing himself for each plant gauge or something like that. It won't really make a cut in comparison to many other decks and might rather be our C tier deck. But there's a certain tier dragon in this set which might make it up for this low amount of power value. Tide Line Dragon. His ability is, if a persona rolled this turn, soul +1, choose one of your other units, and that unit and this unit himself gain 10k each for your turn. So of course, you have to persona right. But if you manage to do that, you got about 30k alone during the first 2 attacks, or rather for the rearguard attacks, all thanks to this card. But it doesn't really change the fact that Granfia still lags in either more shield values or drawing more than you want to. And now on for another triple R, Goido. It's a card which supports the Magnolia deck. He has a skill from a drop. If you place a Magnolia unit during your right phase, you can put this card in the soul and your Vanguard gets 5k for the turn. And his second ability is in the back row. When this unit attacks, it gains 10k until the end of battle. And if it's in the back row center circle, you can pay the cost to retire himself and draw a card. So this card gives your Magnolia Vanguard a power buff of 5k, which it really needs, due to the reason that the Magnolia relies most of the time to use his back row rearguards to make his attack, and Magnolia himself will only swing in for 13k. So yeah, this card is a really niche way to power up your Vanguard without relying on any boosters. And with the inclusion of a second effect, you got another Inlepus card in your deck. Okay, the difference here is that Inlepus built himself to soul to draw a card, but this card times himself to draw a card. But that's still good because you also want to have this card in your drop zone just to put it back in the soul to get the power for your Vanguard. Those are some niche cards, but Magnolia, unfortunately, won't make the cut as well. Stoichia has a really tough time now, man. The only deck in Stoichia which you might consider playing nowadays is maybe Fleckberg or Zolgar. Now mention Fleckberg, this set also has some cards which support himself, but they don't really matter, and you would rather use the other cards more than those cards, so I'm not gonna get deep into those cards. Lastly, let's take a look at the Dragon Tree card for this nation. His second ability is, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or higher, you can counter +1 and soul +1, choose a noble order from your drop and add it to your hand. Just a card which you would rather see in a Wargard deck, but maybe you are trying to play something using quite some orders which you really want to use often. It's not really that much of a great card. Like the Eddring Empire card, it's just way to minimize in the choice of decks which you can use. Can't say very much more about this, huh? Now let's step into Keta Sanctuary, and first with a support card of one of the meta decks, Youthberg, Dullbreak. He has a skill in the front row rearguard circle. If your Vanguard has been placed by the ability of a Revel Dress, you can choose your Vanguard and it gains 5k until the end of turn. And his second ability is, if it attacks the Vanguard, you can soul blast one card with a Revel form in its name, and this card gains 10k until the end of that battle. A really interesting card which gives Youthberg a high beater card now. So in combination like with Tempest, it's a 25k attacker. It's quite good. Just a high beater, doesn't hurt. All the cards which you now use in Youthberg aren't really that much of high attackers. Most of the time only generate power on the reguard with Tempest and Trigger checks. A really good addition, not like another crazy card like the time where Tempest came out, right? And for the other card, which is also our support card for Youthberg, is Filled, a great one which has the ability in the back row center reguard circle. If your Vanguard is being placed by the ability of Revel Address, stand this card and it gains 10k until the end of turn. This card allows you to have a high power Vanguard swing twice. And yeah, there's the talk now if you really want to use it, because you mostly want the counters in your decks and Therapy Angel. It's up to you to decide if you just want to use more power value in the deck or more of the card value. There's also some new cards for Bastion actually. The triple R called Rondali has two abilities. You can put this card in Soul and choose to Bastion Vanguard, and it gains the ability for the turn that all of your grade 3 reguards gain boost. You don't really have to use Dogstring anymore. You have this card, just put it in and you got the Dogstring effect online without paying 2 souls. And for a second ability is, if it's in a soul, you can put herself to a drop and give one of your grade 3 reguards boost for this turn. Quite good, right? And there's also another grade 3 which has an on-hit ability. You can look at the top 7 cards of your deck and choose up to one Bastion card among them and add it to your hand and shuffle your deck afterwards. And if it has been in the back row circle, because on-hit effect also works and when it's boost, you retire that card. This way you can just have on-hit pressure and just spin your deck by one card. It won't really bring Bastion a better position now, because you got rid of the Dogstring problem only having it by one. There are now other cards which don't really support a certain archetype, but are still worth mentioning. A grade 2 double R, Stone Dragon, has the ability if once per turn, if you persona mode this turn, you can counter blast 1 and then put all of your opponent's reguards in the same column as this card to the bottom of the deck. A really quite interesting removal card, but like the other cards, like yeah, it relies heavily on you being on a persona right turn. You might consider this card for a future if you have a deck which really heavily goes around persona rating on each turn, like the Grey is the best example. And then there's now another grade 2 card, another dragon, which has the ability. If this card is placed by ability, you can pay the cost of Soul plus 2 and countercharge 1 and it gains 5 until the end of turn. Kid essentially got finally a great countercharger, but the problem here is it has to be called by effect. You might use it in the Youthberg, but you have to rely on Youthberg's skill to look at top 3 and call something out to get the countercharge, but we will see in the future. In my opinion, it will be useful in the future, for sure. And now there are two common cards which also have to be mentioned in my opinion. First is a grade 3 dragon card, which has the ability, when this card is placed from hand on reguard circle, fall plus 1 and choose a grade 2 or higher card from a drop and put it on top of your deck. This is the standard format, it's not really great I'd say, but premium side, ooh. You can stack your grade 3 heal if you either want to have a G-Guard doing your opponent's turn or just want to trigger a heal in general. That's a great option for Kata decks. There's also the second common card, a grade 1 called Legata. This card has the ability once per turn you can soul plus 1, look at top card of your deck and place it back as it is, and this card gains 2k. So yeah, on each turn it's a MK booster and you got access to the information of the top of your deck. Not really that impressive actually, but well, always having a 10k booster and having the option to look at top card for the turn, still worth mentioning it. Regards. Now lastly for a Kedusing tree, there's also of course the Dragon Tree unit. He got the ability in the back row circle. When you regards it plays in the front row in the same column of this unit, call the blast runner and draw. Not really quite impressive. So far all those Dragon Tree units haven't been really much of a great generic card in general. Just some situational or rather not really useful in every deck. In this one, yeah, that's just useful maybe in a Keta deck where you can burn off Unblessed. That's all what it will do. Quite really sad actually about those Strength triggers. All of them being a triple red card. Oh boy. Now let's take a look into Dark States, and let's start with the other new right line for the set, Unica. Her right line, the grade 1, allows you to, if rolled upon Soul Charge 2, and if a crit trigger got Soul Charged by this effect, you draw a card. And for the grade 2, if rolled upon by Unica, you can call herself and the grade 1 for right line from a soul each to reguard circle. The grade 2 has the effect by counterblessing 1, 2 cards from drop and put in soul and gets 5k, and the grade 1 allows it to bind a tree unit from soul and it gets 10k for a turn. Those cards heavily focus on using trigger unit, and the reason for that is simply if you look at the skills of Unica herself. Her first skill is if a trigger unit got soul blasted for the cost of this unit's ability, choose for each card one of your units and it gains 5k for the turn. So the reason to have quite the amount of triggers in your soul is soul blast them and power your board. Let's take a look at second build. When this card attacks Vanguard, soul plus 3, so you can do the first skill at the maximum of 3 times. Find all crit triggers which got soul blasted for this card's cost. Perform all of the following abilities according to the number of crit triggers in the bind zone. 1 trigger is one of your opponent's rearguards and retire. 2 triggers, this card gains 1 crit until the end of battle. And if you got maximum of 3 at least, this card gains drive plus 1 until the end of turn. If you're fast enough to get 3 crit triggers into your soul, you already got access to a triple drive, double crit attacking Vanguard. Quite an interesting deck, I get to say. And even with the support cards, some of them allow to put triggers back into the soul for a drop, or if you have a triggers and bind zone, they gain more power, stuff like that, you know. Of course, you can abuse generic cards like Whirler and Gungren just to either have higher power on the board or use some of the solution for Gungren to draw a card, but that's most likely light run for you. The C tier deck, it's not really that trash because it got quite the impressive effect of having triple drive and 2 crits on the first grade 3 turn, but it's still lacking, so a solid C tier. So now, and the other triple rare card which got introduced in the set is a new Bruce. It's Diabolos Violence Bruce. And for his first ability, at the beginning of the attack phase, if all of your units on the board have Diabolos in its name, you are in Final Rush. The difference here is that you get in Final Rush stage during the first grade 3 turn, but there's also another catch for this effect. In addition, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 as well, instead of Final Rush, you get into Final Burst. Final Burst in itself is still like Final Rush, so if you got the effects for Final Rush during the battle phase, they're still active. The Final Burst is another new keyword which allows you to get access to some new card effects. Oh, and there's another thing which I should mention. Gaining Final Burst, Final Rush at the beginning of your attack phase, keyword lasts until the end of your opponent's turn. For example, Eden himself has the ability that if you're in Final Rush, he gains 5k. It's a continuous effect, which means he sits on a 15k even during your opponent's turn. He can depend himself, which makes it much easier for you to guard for this unit if you want to. There's also Stephanie, the ability that the card in front of her gains 5k. So if it's behind Bruce himself, you got a 18k with Vanguard during your opponent's turn. Quite defensive, really nice. And after that, let's take a look at the second ability. When this card attacks, if you're in Final Burst, counterblast 1, choose 2 rearguards with Diabolos in its name in the same column and restand them, and both of them gain 5k each until the end of turn. It's not like the old Bruce, it doesn't really restand both of your front row rearguards, but instead it just restands entire column. Due to the reason that you are forced to play Diabolos only in its name, you won't get access anymore to those amazing generic cards which you used in the old deck to make big power swings in the rearguards or just getting a bunch of draw. But now, this deck doesn't really rely on combo cards anymore like in the old deck. You just have a solid 4 attack and some kind of a more defensive style deck. The reason for that is if you look in the other support card like Jamil, if you find a burst, this card gains 10k power and 5k shield. There's also a Diabolos card in the set which has the ability that if you're in Final Rush, this card gains 5k shield as well. So yeah, more defensive cards. So there's also a card which supports now Baron Magnus, but now I'm just gonna stop right there. Not worth mentioning this card. Like for Eugene and Fleckberg, they're not good enough or like they won't make a change, so let's push it away. Let's take a look at Clean Sweep Dragon. If you Persona Road this turn, counter plus 1 and choose up to 3 of you or your opponent's rearguards and put them all into a perspective on the soul. And this card gains 5k for each card chosen by this effect. This card is way too amazing just by counter blast 1. You get rid of most of the cards on your opponent's board. So for all of you, you should consider to get this card. It's that amazing. And of course, I also have to mention the Dragon Creep or Dark State. His second ability is if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, Soul Blast 2, and just one of your grade 1 or less cards from a soul uncalled to rearguard in the same column as this card. It's quite added compared to the other 3 from before, but really hard to bring this card in any deck right now. They either want to keep cards in soul. Okay, you can call a Swirl out with your soul and soul charge 1 back, so it's only -2 for your soul, but yeah man, that's it. That's all I got to say about this card. Well, moving on, I guess. Now for the last nation of the set, Vanguard. Boy, Vanguard got another amount of love again. First, let's take a look at the last new grade 3 right line of this set, Vanguard. First, let's take a look at the right line, of course, quite similar to many of the other Vanguard right lines. The grade 1, the front of pawn by the grade 2, and you have the certain grade 0 in the soul. Search your deck for one grade 1 strategy card and add it to your hand shuffle your deck. And the grade 2, front of pawn by the grade 3 Vanguard. Search your deck for one grade 2 strategy order card and add it to your hand. Well, why do you even need those strategy cards? So let's take a look at Vanguard. His skill is, if your soul has this grade 0 card, so if you want to play Vanguard, start is really essential for this deck. Play the cost by putting one strategy card from auto zone in soul, draw a card, this card gains 5k, and one certain ability until the end of turn. After this card tag, if it hit or you persona roll this turn, counterblast 1, discard one card from your hand and restand it. Find a solid restanding effect, I got to say. Of course, conditions are quite hard. You have to hit or being on persona, right? But alternate pressure is quite good. Now, let's take a look at strategy cards as well. All of the order cards have ability if they have been put to the soul, and of course by Vanguard. One of them allows you to retire one of your opponent's rear guard or give Vanguard the power bubble 5k and blocking off your opponent's intercept, which is good against Vanguard. And there's also a grade 3 strategy order card which has the ability during this turn, each time your Vanguard attacks, front row gets 5k. Of course, the right one doesn't search for this grade 3 card, but there is a card called a Halton Folk. This card has the ability if it's placed on the rear guard circle, counterblast and soul +1, and search your deck for up to one grade 3 order and add it to your hand. And he's also 18k if you place an order during this turn. He doesn't really say strategy order, so it's also a generic card. Despite that, you will want to use it just to get an amazing grade 3 strategy order. But yeah, I said that Vanguard got another huge amount of love, not because of Vanguard. This is a grade 2 triple R Cardfight. He's got the amazing ability. If this card has been placed on rear guard circle, and if you have a card in the order zone, which you will have in Vanguard, counterblast 1. Discard one card from your hand. Search your deck for up to one card with the same name as your Vanguard, or either a product card and add it to your hand. But decided I get to the rest of the skill because this first part of it is really important. Having a personal right search in general is quite good, guys. So now let's take also a look at the rest of its skill. As I've mentioned, it also searches a product card, so you know Velstra support. In addition to that, if your Vanguard is of course Velstra, you can choose one of your product cards in your hand and place in the order zone. You can place Maximum Fortress in the order zone without having the grade 2. And the second ability is when this card attack a Vanguard, soul +2, choose a product card and operate it. Now you also got the second option to operate cards during the battle phase. But Wester didn't only get this card as a great support. There's also a new product card which is called Battle. On place, draw a card in Soul just 1. You just place it and get a card in a soul main. And for a second ability, when this card has been operated during the main phase, you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose one card with the same grade or less as your Vanguard and call it up. But if you operated it during the battle phase, draw a card. With those 2 cards alone, Buster will be considered as a great contender in the current format now. And now there are also cards again which support other certain archetypes like Ravidio or Hero Bot. Like all the other cards which supported those little archetypes, I'm just gonna put it away. Same reasons as always. There's also another generic card which really likes to be in the zone at right turn. Soul +1. Discard one card from your hand. This card gains 5k until the end of turn. Then choose one set order card from draws and add it to hand. In addition to that, you can also choose another set order card from draws and add it to your hand, as long as his name is different from the one which you first added to your hand. Quite interesting card which allows you to recycle your set orders from the drop zone. Good thing forever and for Vanguard just to get those set orders back in the hand if you want. You can really consider this card to be played. And now the last Dragon Tree Nation card. His second ability is when a set order is being placed in the order zone, counterblast 1, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to one card with a grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, and call it the same, call him this unit, shuffle your deck. If I don't really think that they really got placed for in any of your Renegades deck, you really want to use your counterblast for more powerful attack. Of course, getting rid of one of your cards from your deck and calling the same, calling this is strong in itself. Yeah, no doubt about it. That's all for all the nations. But wait, the one thing which I should mention, right? Yeah, there's a card which covers the whole set. Rank 3 boss unit in the set. Great for Gila. He's a first grade 10 in the whole history of Vanguard. But how do we write it? There's a grade 0 seed which allows you to do that. During right phase, instead of discarding one card from your hand to right, just one calamity card in your right deck and put it into soul. First different, you stay on grade 0. For each calamity card in soul, it gains 2k, so basically right into 8k and 10k for those turns. But there's also another interesting thing. The grade 0 seed allows you to have 5 cards in the right deck instead of 4. But why is that Well, first let's end the skill of this great zero. If you have 3 calamity cards in your soul, you put them all face up back to your right deck and superior right your grade 10 boss monster from either your hand or deck. Don't write it normally, you just superior right it. And if you do so, you choose 2 of your rear guards and play 2 Dragon Tree markers. But why do you need that? Power up your units by 5k, but there's another catch to it. Grifogilla is the answer to it. He's got the continuous effect during your turn. This card gains 5k for each of your Dragon Tree markers on the rear guard. And if you got 3 of them, this card also gains additional crit. Grifogilla himself doesn't have a nation, so you can just use a nation and combine this card with anything as you want. And that's why each nation's got their own Dragon Tree card just to get the third marker for another crit, right? But now let's take a look at the second effect, and that's gonna explain 5th card in the right deck and what that's gonna be. When this card attacks the Vanguard, choose 1 face-up calamity card right deck and remove it for a game for 3 turns. And on the 4th turn when are not able to do that, choose or over trigger the last face-up card your right deck, remove it from play as well, then activate all of the trigger effect. Not just the 100 million game, but also the trigger effect as if it has been triggered. After that, resend all of your reads on the Dragon Tree markers, so the overtrigger is being guaranteed in this deck, no matter what. There's one certain deck which I have already seen myself, a Dragon Empire Grifogilla deck, which abuses the Grade 4 Overdress card to make about 8 tags in 1 turn, and even 2 swing on the rear guard with the overtrigger on. Way too insane, man. In my opinion, from all the nations, Dragon Empire might be the way. For Grifogilla to be kinda slow might make him in a lower tier, because you really have to wait for it. You might be finished even earlier for getting into it. Yeah guys, that's about it for all the cards which I really want to mention has been covered. Let's see what you guys are gonna make out of it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like and also leave a comment below if you also want to say about these new cards. Have a nice day, and I will hope I will see you next time. Bye.